Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will continue talking about the transition property and the other options we can deal with when using it on our HTML elements. Now, besides the transition property and the transition duration that we talked about in the last lesson, and remember we said that they are necessary for the transition to work on the elements, we also have two additional properties that we can use to take further control of our transition, and those are the transition timing function and the transition delay. First, the transition timing function simply refers to how the change in the property will occur. For example, will the background color begin to change slowly at the start of the transition duration and then faster at the end? Or will it change at the same rate throughout the transition period? Those questions can be answered by the transition timing function. Now, the transition timing function has 5 different values that we can use. First, ease, which is applied by default if you don't use the transition timing function. What it does is it makes the change start slow, then go faster in the middle, and then slow down a bit before the end. Second, linear, in which the change will occur at the same rate from the beginning to the end throughout the transition duration. Third, ease in which the change starts slow and then speeds up before the end. Fourth, ease out, which, unlike ease in, starts fast and then slows down at the end. And finally, ease in out, in which the change starts slow, then speeds up in the middle, and then ends slow. It's kind of like ease. There isn't that much difference between them. Great, so let's see those in action. I've got 5 transition timing function values here in my browser, and I have a demo for each one of them. Now, the property that will change here is the position of the div. So when I hover over any one of them, it will move a specific distance horizontally, and then return to its original location when I hover away, like so. Now, before viewing the different values, let's take a look at them in the code editor and see how we created this horizontal movement. So here in my HTML, I have a div with a class of container, and then inside of it, I have 5 children divs, all of them having the class move that is using the CSS to add the general styles for all the divs. And every one of them has a specific ID, so that we can change the transition timing function according to that ID. So you can see the first one has an ID of ease. Its transition timing function will be ease. The second one is linear, then ease in, ease out, and ease in out. And when we go to our CSS, here we have selected the move class and added some generic styles to make the divs look better, like some margins, width, height, padding, and so on. And here at the last line, we declare the transition property, which is the translate that is responsible for changing the location of the divs from the left to the right over a transition duration of 3 seconds. So if we look here at the end of the CSS file, you can see that we're targeting all the divs. And when we hover over them, they will translate, or in other words, their location on the page will change. They'll move 900 pixels on the x-axis, or horizontally, and 0 vertically. This is a transform property that we'll learn about later in the course, but I want you to know that this will just change the location of the div 900 pixels to the right when we hover over it. Above that, I've targeted each div with its unique ID, and added the 5 different values of the transition timing function. So here, I've added ease for the first one, linear for the second, and then ease in, ease out, and ease in out. So to wrap things up, what we are doing here is simple. We just said to the browser, when I hover over any div, I want it to move 900 pixels to the right, and I want this change or this movement to happen smoothly over 3 seconds. And I want each div to move differently. So the first one will move differently from the second, which will move differently from the third, and so on. Alright, let's go back to the browser. And when I hover over ease, which is the default, you can see it starts slow, then gets faster, then returns to slow before the end. And when I hover away, it will also return slow, then fast, then slow. But for linear, if I hover, you see it goes at the same rate throughout the duration time. It's moving at the same speed for all of the 3 seconds. And ease in, slow at the beginning, then faster at the end. And when I hover away, it returns slow, then faster again at the end. Ease out, fast at the beginning, then slow at the end. And when I hover away, it returns fast and then slow again at the end. Ease in out, begins slow, then moves faster in the middle, then slow again at the end. Alright, now the second property that we'll talk about in this lesson is called the transition delay, and it simply represents the time the transition waits before it starts. It accepts time values in seconds or milliseconds. Now, here in our HTML, we have the button from the first lesson. I think you remember that when we hover over that button, the background color will change from blue to green, like so. Now, let's go back to our CSS. I'll go right here below the transition duration property, and I'll add transition delay. 2 seconds. And now, when I hover over the button, it should wait 2 seconds before the change in the background color starts. And that is simply the transition delay property.
Please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you will be notified with my latest videos and updates.